Warning! This episode contains graphic language, Garrow's take on literacy, poor facial hair choices, daydreams of war crimes, and as always, teen angst. Also, there'll be spoilers for chapters 11 through 17 of Inheritance, Book 4 of the Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini. Listen at your own risk.
Is this a podcast, or is this just fantasy? We're just two nerds and we love our fantasy. So join us if you want to nerd out. Time to start the podcast and see. Anyway, here's the show.
Hello, readers. I'm Dane Patterson, the host who also does not want to go back to Dras-Leona. It gives me the ick.
And I'm Jackie Lanier, and is this a podcast or is this just fantasy? The podcast where the hosts are also at our best when we set aside time for reflection through the art of journaling.
Yeah.
It's a shame we never seem to remember to do that before we're on the hot mics. Whoops.
So
Again
funny.
today.
It's so true. As we mentioned last week, we're doing a merch giveaway this season. If you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and email us a screenshot of it at any point during the next 8 weeks of the Inheritance episodes, you'll be entered to win a whole ass bundle of our sweet fantasy themed merch.
Yes.
It's really awesome. We'll also pick some second and third prize winners to send tumblers or stickers or a combination thereof. So if that sounds like your thing, get reviewing.
Yes.
Make them crazy. Make them funny. You can send your emails to isthisjustfantasypod@gmail.com.
And I don't know if you've heard all the times I've said it at the top of these episodes for 3 full seasons, but you can visit us at isthisjustfantasypod.com. All of our episodes live there, along with some goofy pictures of our faces, if that's your thing. But if Aragon-themed memes are more your speed, follow us on social media. We are on TikTok at isthisjustfantasypod and on Instagram at justfantasypod. And before we get to discussing Roran and his unfortunate places, I want to take a quick look back on what happened. That's real. I did not write that. Yeah. I want to take a quick look back on what happened at the beginning of the end in our last episode. So Paolini kicked off Inheritance with what we both agreed is the most fun cold open yet. Eragon and Saphira are leading the Varden in an attack on Bellatona, and it looks like an intense, gritty urban warfare is going to be our new norm here, as everybody levels way the fuck up in this battle. Even Bloodgarm shows us a new trick with a hint of cannibalism, like the LaCroix of cannibalism, if you will. But we'd really hate to make a meal of that on this podcast.
We would never do that.
No, we are smooth, steady, measured here. But a fancy new dragon-slaying magical item enters the chat, and the poor structural integrity of Bellatona's keep almost murks Roran. Aragon frantically searches for his brother cousin in the rubble, only to find Roran with barely a scratch, still killing dudes and roasting Aragon's ass. So now Aragon, Arya, Bloodgarm, and Roran are left to speedrun the Bellatona map, and after using a brutal arsenal of new moves, they make it to the final boss, who weirdly does not seem happy to see them.
Remember when Aragon punched a guy to death?
Yes, that was this cold open.
It was wild.
Yes, Arya, in a similar vein, I feel like, meets this Lord Bradburn and just like sleeps him immediately.
It's wild.
Because it's time for everyone to meet up with the surprise werecat army that conveniently rolls up at the end of the battle. They waited. They knew that the battle was going to happen, and they were like, is it about... Okay, yeah, let's walk in.
It's a perfect time to come now.
Yeah. They're looking to get into the cool rebel clique to help take down Gal, and despite the wildly unhinged vibes at this state visit, Nasuada negotiates terms that include bowls of cream, comfy cushions, and cat-sized armor, things I've not made up. Again, it's just... in the text.
Sometimes when we're doing this, I'm like, our life has really taken a turn.
Yes. So with some kooky new allies secured, Aragon snags some self-care trance time to reflect on his memories of Brahm, which prompts a round of fresh attempts to contact Glader with Saphira and Arya. Meanwhile, Roran has a light PTSD breakdown over the whole ass building that fell on him, but luckily his pregnant wife is there to talk him off the ledge. Women really can have it all.
Oh, God.
And speaking of our girl bosses, Nasuada's post-battle debrief covers Urgle PR and next steps for the war with the new and not at all improved, dramatically unimproved Dark Orin.
It's like when they change the recipe, but the recipe's worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That guy is another problem for another time, though, Dane, because the Horsts are having their baby. But something is amiss with the newborn little girl, so it's time for Aragon to step up with Arya's somewhat controversial help to be Alagaesia's newest neonatal surgeon. He pulls an all-nighter full of lullaby trance magic and off topic, just quick aside.
Yeah.
Should we try to make lullaby trance magic the hot new EDM craze? Is that like coming for us?
Would pay money to see you be a DJ. I would love
Make
to see
the music
you
festival.
make a music festival like you
Circuit.
up there just like
Wearing like a wizard hat, but playing like weird lullaby samples, like nursery rhymes.
Yes. Like your first one just starts off like, you shall not pass.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah. Yes. I digress, I guess. We're still doing this recap and I'm almost done. Aragon manages to fix the baby's cleft lip and everyone is overjoyed, and you know he did a good job because even Elva manages to not be mad at him, and I feel like those two are finally turning over a new leaf.
Yeah, I think the Witch Baby Dragon Detective spin-off series is for sure just around the corner.
Yeah,
you know what I
gotta
mean?
be 100%.
To be real honest with you, Jax, I think they would be hilarious friends. Like, I think together they'd be fun. I mean, his other female friends include Angela, who pretty much always teases him and dodges his questions and throws in a dash of some physical violence from time to time. And,
slaps abound with Angela.
Arya is constantly calling him a coward and questioning his judgment while showing him up at every opportunity she can.
Yeah.
So Elva would be a perfect mix. She would be like the final boss form of Gal Pal level up. You know what I mean? Just imagine the humiliation and pain she could cause our goofy teen on a regular basis.
That feels so right.
Just with her words. You know, this bean farmer needs someone who will tell him when he's about to... he does need someone to tell him when he's about to get like a head injury. So like his brain can't take any more of his poor choices.
You know what? I feel like it's been a really long time since we've seen Aragon have a serious head trauma. Do you think he's growing?
Do you think they're already starting their friendship?
I'm just saying, that's my hot take at the beginning of this last book. I feel like Roran weirdly is trying to like take the head trauma crown from Aragon. I feel like his ass is like getting so injured so often lately.
Do you think this is a Garrow son like problem? Garrow just always hit him in the head or something?
Well, given everything we know about Garrow, that has got to be true.
We're going to learn more about Garrow.
I know. I feel like there are so many choice asides in this book specifically that I'm like, dude, we really nailed that at the beginning.
It is truly one of the main things when we sit down with Paolini, I'm like, hey, look, man, I know we got a whole book series, get your new book, Murtag. Garrow. We have to
parse through it. It's
that.
So fun. I feel like, though, my mind, I'm like half paying attention to this Garrow conversation, which is bad because you know I love Garrow.
Yeah.
But my mind is so stuck on Witch Baby Dragon Detective series. It's just playing in a loop because it got me thinking, you used to work in reality TV.
I did. Yeah.
What reality TV show would you want to see set in this world? I think we made a joke at one point about like how petty the elves are, being like a perfect vehicle for like a Real Housewives of Ellis Mira at some point. Now that lives rent free in my head. You can tell anytime like something adjacent comes up, my brain's like, reality TV, trash television, make it work.
Oh gosh, I would want... Gosh, it's Alagaesian. I want like Lego Master type reality contest with like dwarves constructing like effigies to Guntera, or like making a jewelry, some type of crafting competitions with like dwarven clans.
Okay,
and they're like Dungai Squan sucks. You know, I just feel like that would be hilarious.
Okay, I love that.
Oh god, now I got a bunch of them. I'm like I want like a Tiger King situation.
Now you know why I couldn't pay attention to Garrett. I was like, my god,
I want Tiger King. I want Galbatorix as the dude in Tiger King.
Is he already kind of?
Yeah, I want the caretakers of Shuriken and Thorn. I want to just watch the caretakers. No, the cults. I want a cult documentary of how I survived like the Hellgrind cultists.
That would be so good. I watch so many cult documentaries. If it's featuring a cult, I'm in it.
But this would probably end with like the cameraman losing his arm.
I was thinking, you know what else would be fucking so cool, amazing, if you will?
Okay.
What if they did like an Amazing Race style show, but where all the teams had to be like Urgle Dwarf or like
we mix and match.
Yes, or like Elf Dwarf.
So just building the drama in that they will hate each other. So every two has an elf.
Interracial cooperation. Well, I don't want to say elf human because Aragon's like already an elf human.
It's like they have an elf human, they have a dwarf human, they have an Urgle human,
Yeah.
they have 2 elves. Those are the teams.
Those are all the teams. Who's going to win? Crossing my fingers. I think that'd be cool. Or like, oh, you said Lego Masters.
Uh-huh.
Okay. For reality competition,
Right.
like, what about like Chopped? But all the ingredients are cursed. Like all the ingredients.
It's like Angela's the host.
Yes.
Gotta make
yes,
potions.
Yes.
Okay.
100%. And if it doesn't, like, you have to make 3 dishes, and all 3 of them have to turn the same teacup into 3 different animals.
Yes. Now I already want to watch it.
Yes.
The only thing I can think of that's like really in the zeitgeist is like Love is Blind.
Oh.
Do you like Love is Blind Alagaesian?
Speaking of,
Alagaesian.
Is there new Love is Blind that we
I think
haven't
there is
watched?
a new Love is Blind.
Little BTS, one of the many, many things that powers this podcast is binging Love is Blind late at night in a fugue state after we record.
I think we did do that for a lot of season 3.
That's correct.
So if you want to know what we were doing the nights after we were recording, Love is Blind. And on that note,
Pinnacle of reality television, everybody. You heard it here first.
perfectly named chapter for a segue out of this. Chapter 11, No Rest for the Weary.
Well, there would be rest for them if they had Love is Blind
If
to
they had
watch.
Love is Blind.
Dane.
That's hilarious. We come back this week into a chapter with Roran and Nasuada.
Fun.
Roran's having a staring contest with the Nighthawks.
That seems dubious,
Yeah,
safety-wise for him.
Oh, don't worry. It's totally chill. He's ruminating on how to kill them, going into great detail about his strategy. And I think War, as we saw in the last section, is really getting to Roran.
Yeah.
This was middle as fuck, but it also was haunting.
Yeah.
Nasuada is in a war room, it sounds like, with maps and aides and various leaders. And I like the vibe here. It definitely seems to me like Paolini was watching a lot of war movies before he wrote this.
Yeah.
There's a chaotic tone. People are giving orders. Other people are grumpy about it. It's got everything you want in a wartime leader scene.
You love to see it.
Yeah, just imagine her be like, no, by Militona. And then
How
someone's
many
running.
like epic table slaps, like aggressive table slaps, do you think we got in this war scene?
Oh, no less than 3.
Amazing.
No less than 3.
Good.
Roran comes to an interesting insight when he reflects that Nasuada is a woman, and yet she is intimidating and has the respect of so many tough men. It made me chuckle because it's so funny how sexist he is, because he's the dishwashing guy. He is our progressive friend.
That's so true. Not our progressive king. You just made me remember I was dying when I read this, because didn't Christopher Paolini write it like Nasuada dash notably a woman?
Yes.
I was like, Roran, no. You know her, a lady.
That's how I'm going to start referring to you as my co-host. Jackie, notably a woman.
Notably.
That's so funny.
Infamously a woman.
So his whole POV
damn it, Roran.
is unhinged in this. It's crazy. Roran and Nasuada butt heads right away, just right off the bat, in a fun little battle of witticisms. But we're here, so Nasuada can give Roran his orders.
Okay.
She's sending him to Aroughs, a city located south of the Burning Plains, past this current location. There was already it's behind.
Okay. I was
Yeah.
like, weren't we already back there?
Yeah, we have gone up, and she's sending him back. I don't know if you
Okay.
remember, but when they were doing that whole thing, 2 people had gone.
Oh.
Had been sent to other locations.
Oh,
Aroughs
to like
is one of
protect
those.
them from
Or take
the other
them.
side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Nasuada is sending Roran to take over command and free Aroughs so
Okay.
she can get the main force reunited to push further into the Amber. Basically, they're holding out.
Okay.
She goes on to tell him that he needs to get there in 4 days, changing
Amazing.
horses along the way. Yeah.
An old familiar.
Yeah,
An old standby.
They're just riding these horses.
Yeah.
I guess they don't make them like Tarnak and Snowfire, right, anymore.
So he can't ride just one horse.
Oh, wait, Rowan has Snowfire.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this is lucky. He can just ride Snowfire the entire way.
Yeah, till Snowfire dies, but then doesn't die
That
because
doesn't die.
it's Snowfire.
Problem solved.
He's magic.
They just need to find Tornak. But riding there at breakneck speed isn't the only thing she needs this crazy man to do. She needs him to take the city in only 3 days.
Oh.
I'm now convinced that Nasuada is trying to kill Roran on a
Oh my
suicide
God.
mission. Because we know she's like a little worried about him and his fame, and this just seems like another unwinnable situation. On top of that, at the end of their conversation, she won't let him get any more wards from Aragon because it might make her rider too tired. And I'm just saying, it looks like a setup.
I mean, Roran's going pretty far away, Dane. Be hard to keep those
It's just
wards
like
in place.
don't wear the bulletproof vest. You know what I mean? I'm just saying like we don't have enough. It's just a little
Well, the string tied to your bulletproof vest that'll drag our biggest weapon along with you might end up being a problem.
Exactly. Well, whatever.
So leave it here.
I stand by it. Roran does point out that he doesn't have any experience in siegecraft, and she should probably send like Martlin Redbeard. He got a notable mention here. But Nasuada points out that obviously he can't ride at full gallop with one hand.
I mean,
I'm just like, get a grip, girl. Get a grip. It seems like he could do it with no hands.
He does, honestly. I would trust him with my life. He was so capable. I miss him.
Yeah, he's always got a grasp on the situation.
Oh my God.
But Roran's fears aren't remotely addressed, with Nasuada going on to say that, sure, there are more seasoned commanders in the army.
Yeah.
But they don't have what he has, which is the ability to fucking win.
I mean... He's on a hot streak, Dane.
Yeah.
The man's on a heater. You don't take your pitcher out when he's pitching a no-hitter.
Hey, that's absolutely right. It is. You nailed it. It's bad form. All the trading means nothing if it can't be applied, and Roran is a natural-born winner.
Yeah.
She also believes in luck, and just as a quick aside, everybody,
you would pick up on that.
Yes, I totally believe in luck. Luck is a thing. Some people are more lucky than others.
Yeah.
It's a given. I'm just saying. Jack knows this. I do go
Well,
on
I was
going to
say, I only... kind of believe in luck because you are often so lucky that I'm like, well, my life definitely isn't like that. So things do not work out for me in quite the same way usually. So I'm like, maybe it's true.
Yeah, you got to put your faith in the Lady Luck.
I do.
She
I
rewards
don't
you.
believe in her enough.
Yeah, that's what it is. You can't talk about her too much though. Remember when I talked about her?
Yeah,
and then
you were
had
on a bad streak.
Bad streak.
Again, I was there for that. I can attest
crazy.
that really happened.
I even said it. I was like, I've talked about her too much. She's going to be mad.
Being stuck in a hurricane in Cabo San Lucas was a part of that. So.
Yeah. She's a fickle mistress.
She really is.
She's much like Sindri, a dirty god. Anyway, I digress. Before he leaves, Roran also gets promoted to captain, which is pretty high, above a first lieutenant in the U.S. Army, I think.
Yes.
But if you're a military head, please email me if I'm wrong. I never understand. I never know how to like put this into context. But either way,
is it like different for the different branches?
It's different for the different branches, and then different countries, and then different time periods. So trying to get like where it would be comparatively is kind of hard.
Okay.
So anyway,
he's up there.
Either way, he's pretty high up there now, and he's becoming important. And I mean, being a white man benefiting from nepotism with a bad case of monomania and being a hard worker really is the combo for success.
Yeah, that's just a classic Nepo brother cousin failing up Dane. Happens all the time.
Truly just like pulling himself up.
By his nepotism bootstraps.
Yeah, he worked hard. Anyway, Roran will have the 800 men already camped at Aroughs to take the city, and he does get to take any other men he wants.
That's fun. He gets a little draft pick situation.
Yes, and he each picks our favorite magician, Karn.
Yes.
And with that all figured out, Nasuada ends their chat by telling him that being illiterate makes him untrustworthy and vulnerable, and thus no more promotions will be coming until he can read. So if Aragon learned in a week, Roran can probably do it in like 4 days, right? If like we endanger Katrina in some way, this guy will get it done in a night.
I was like, what do you mean he could do it in 4 days? He's riding horses for 4 days, Dane.
That's true.
But if you, like you said, if you endanger Katrina, he'll ride those horses and learn to read in 4 days, and he'll probably kill 20 people on top of it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, while Ryan's mulling over reading, we do get some more insight into Garrow's characterization.
Oh, yes.
That's a direct quote from the book.
We love it.
Quote, teaching us to read made no more sense than teaching a dog to walk on his hind legs. Amusing, but hardly worth the effort. Oh, Garrow.
You sweet summer child.
Anyway, that's kind of it here. This is a weird chapter for me. Nasuada appears to be hardening under the weight of command.
Yeah.
Her decisions and demeanor are becoming a bit more intense. And similarly, it seems like Roran's experiences in battle and his new leadership role are darkening his character more and more. There's for sure a shift, and the burdens of war and leadership are impacting both of them, altering their personalities and their outlooks on this conflict and what they might be willing to do to beat good old Gal.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, well, that takes us to chapter 12, Dancing with Swords, Dane.
Oh, God. Here we are.
Yes, we made it. This chapter puts us back with Aragon, sitting outside of Bellatona with Saphira, Arya, and his elven murder squad, super antsy to get the fuck out of this town. He's like, okay, we're done. Wrap it up.
He's like, we took it.
Yes, the army is evidently in some disarray trying to leave, and Aragon's irritation at the wait is only being compounded by his worry over Roran having left to Aroughs without those words you were talking about.
It's weird. It's almost like he's in danger now.
He is in danger, but he had to do it.
He had to.
Also, just as an aside, I so feel Aragon here. I feel like I'm the same exact way. He's like looking at the army milling around, and he's like, we should be better at this. This is basically all we do is take city, run away, take city, run away.
Yeah.
And he's like, why is this taking so long? Get your shit together, everybody.
Being anxious between doing things is something that I acutely feel like we all have.
Just like watching a plan fall apart, like a big, like a situation that needs a lot of like finessing or like
what it reminds
a lot
me
of coordination, and nobody's there coordinating. That bothers me.
Well, even like mundane stuff. Have you ever gone grocery shopping with your friend? You're not grocery shopping. You're just with them. And you're just like, this is a mess.
You would judge your friends based on how they grocery shop.
I mean, we all are.
I feel so on brand for you. No, I just walk around and I'm like, you should buy this. You should buy that. I'm just trying to get my friends to buy a bunch of weird shit.
I'm like, why we're starting at produce? That doesn't make any sense. We're just gonna sit in our cart the whole time. This is a backwards world we're living in.
Oh my god.
Dried goods first, obviously.
Wild. Well, all this chaos has left Aragon in a truly shitty mood, but I think we can add another point to the personal growth column for our guy here, because Aragon deals with his frustration in a very healthy way. Yeah. He wants to get some exercise. Like, get those endorphins, girl. Get them. Aragon works through the sword forms that Brahm first taught him before asking one of the elves to spar with him for a little bit. And the bout is really fun for Aragon, he thinks, because he's much more evenly matched than he's been in a while. He's like, oh, this is cool to actually fight somebody who's worthy of fighting me. And per usual, I love Saphira when they finish sparring. She's been like watching and critiquing Aragon the whole time. And she's like, hey, you shouldn't let him hit you so much.
Oh, yeah.
And it's hard to overstate how much that comment is right up my comedic alley. Like, it's just so perfect.
She really is the best character. Like, other than Auric, she's so funny.
Love her. But after that first match, Aragon gets that cringy little twinkle in his eye that could only mean one thing, Dane. He wants to spar with Arya.
That's not what he wants to do with Arya, but that's how this is coming
one
out.
of the things publicly on this hillside he wants to do with Arya. And I'm not sure if you remember the sexual tension fest that was their sparring match all the way back in the very first book.
You mean the way it was written?
Yep.
In a very, like, evocatively...
Buckle up, because we're going to do it all again. Run it back.
Yay.
We kick off with an absolute banger in which Aragon's attack is deterred by nothing but a smile from Arya. He's, like, running at her with a sword, and she smiles at him, and it throws off his whole game.
Of course
so that
it does.
Sucks. She proceeds to quickly knock him on his ass, and she tells him that the fact he's love struck is a weakness before they start again.
That's tracks. That makes the most sense.
That is so true. Yeah. I mean, she's a real one for pointing that out.
She's not
for just
wrong.
being like, hey, bud, don't fucking do that. And I can pretty quickly, I think, summarize the rest of this interaction by saying Arya wipes the floor with him handily. Yeah. She says that fighting only normies has dulled his skill, actually, and he decides to train with Arya and Bloodgarm now as often as he can. So I hope, I know they blunt the edges of their swords magically when they spar, but I don't know how Bloodgarm's going to do that with his teeth when he fights to prevent ripping out Aragon's throat.
Maybe he'll
as
blunt,
his signature move.
Maybe he has to get close and put like very intimate words on Aragon. Come closer.
Aragon, intoxicated by the musk, gets the wards put on his trachea to prevent Bloodgarm from ripping it out.
Just a scene with Aragon so close to the fur. He's like, actually, that's not bad at all.
I kind of get it. Anyway, we take a hard pivot from this horny swordplay when Aragon's consciousness is overtaken in this scene by the first contact from Glader since he's been in Eldenari, and he tells our bean farmer to look with his special eyes. Dane, look, look at it.
When I first read this, it was like, you need corrective lenses, Aragon.
That's basically it. Yeah, Glader's watching him sword fight, and he's like, see better. All the elves heard this as well, so it was like a wide broadcast apparently, and everyone's feeling really on edge after this as Aragon and Saphira and Arya rush to see if the three of them can get back through to Glader, so to see if this was like a one-time thing. And he seems to have firmly retreated for the time being, like it's not working well through the Eldenari. He just popped out for a quick one comment, and now he is back asleep. And they're interrupted from trying to touch the Heart of Hearts by the horn summoning the army to finally get on the move. So everybody's finally organized. The coordinator has stepped up, whipped everyone into shape, and it's time because they were like reaching out, I think, to touch it with their hands.
Yeah.
And it was like, I guess not.
I guess we gotta go.
Yeah. So the chapter ends with Eragon and Saphira stoked to be back in the saddle, and Saphira leaves us with her characteristically pragmatic sage wisdom on Glader's condition, saying that until he decides to move on from his grief, nothing they can do.
Dude, she's the ultimate like bro advice where he's like, I don't know, man. Doesn't seem like he's ready. So
Yeah.
I'm just like, I guess we'll just wait.
He's ready. He'll do it.
It's
Not up to none of our business for now. And
I
you're
love
like,
it.
what? This is like your only secret weapon in the war?
So crazy.
Uh-oh.
That takes us to chapter 13. No honor, no glory, only blisters and unfortunate places.
Incredible.
And we're back with Roran. And right away, it's not going well.
No.
Roran and his boys are on the run from some hounds. His crew obviously includes Karn and Beldar Strongbow, the best of the horse boys. But Roran also chooses to bring 3 of the best Carvajal has to offer. And definitely nobody we have forgotten at this point. First, there is the troubled gambling teenager, Mandel.
Amazing.
Yeah, second, of course, we have Delwyn, the
What?
young man who backed Roran up when the Razak first came.
Okay.
Yeah, and finally, there's our guy Hammond. You know Hammond. Loring's son?
What?
Loring?
Who?
The super old dude? You remember these guys?
What you sound like, you know, when your mom tries to convince you that you're like intimately acquainted with somebody. They're like, you know them. This is like a core part of your childhood. And you're like, who? And they're like, yeah, she used to come around when you were 3. And you're like, what?
Well, his name's Hammond, and he's very nice.
Great. Glad he's here.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we have some Carvalhers, though. I mean,
Yeah.
Basically, this is Roran's high school friends hanging out with his new college buddy, Karn. It's like a Eurotrip movie gone horribly wrong.
Yeah.
This ragtag bunch from Carvajal is running from these hounds on their stolen horses. Apparently, they're stolen horses. It goes about as well as it sounds. Luckily, they find a hollow, and Roran is shuddering from exhaustion, just like his mounted horse. His horse. Why do I keep switching who's riding horses? The horses are not riding the people, Dane. It's the people who are riding the horses.
Listen, horse facts. Calm down. Horses cannot ride people. Horse facts, Dane.
I know. I should know this.
You're just trying to protect the horses. Didn't we decide you were a horse girl?
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, that's something I'm not ready to look at myself in the mirror and agree with.
Okay.
It turns out Roran has gone 3 full days at a total gallop, changing horses and riding for 12 hours straight and getting basically no sleep.
Dude.
So this whole team's on fumes. They pull a log in front of the hollow and get ready for the hounds to come when Karn figures out on the fly how to hide their scent.
Nice.
This tactic works because Karn is clutch as ever, but despite that, Hammond, our favorite Carvajaler, berates Karn for not thinking of that magic trick faster.
That's so rude. I was like, damn, dude, leave him alone.
It's really rough, and I had to say, at least all the Carvajalers are the same intense people. They're all insane.
That's so true. I feel like this moment also really reminded me of how little most magicians actually know of the ancient language.
Yes.
Because this was something we saw when Eragon was running in Brissinger. He had a lot of magic tricks up his sleeve basically to hide himself from Imperial soldiers. And it's like, oh, that is not an equal playing field with most people.
I like to think of him and Braum on the road. There's a lot more with even that's way more than Karn has.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just not a lot.
Yeah.
There's no time for college friends and high school friends to fight for much longer, though.
Good.
As Roran decides after a brief moment that they need to mount back up and start running the horses again.
Wild.
It's a tough chapter ending in Stronghammer land, but when is it not?
I know. He does have a really tough row to hoe, I feel like.
Well, back in his farm, he did.
Yes, a row of rutabagas, notably.
Nothing hotter than a rutabaga.
Oh, God. Didn't he think that about soldiering's hard, but not
Yes. At one point, he does think about how it's not as hard as farming, though.
wild.
Wild.
Love
Killing
to-
a man while you look him in the face isn't harder than pulling a carrot out of the ground.
Well, some of them get stuck. I love Roran.
Yeah, he's pretty funny.
That does take us to chapter 14, Mooneater. This section is like whiplash. I feel like we're back with Eragon. At camp on the shores of the breathtaking Lake Leona, Dane.
I feel like we're always here.
Yes.
Are we always here?
So basically, yes, first of all. But they got to one side of Lake Leona and now they're making their way around it to Dras-Leona. Is that the okay?
It's essentially if you look at the map, the lake's just big.
Yeah.
It's just big.
And it's right in the middle of Alagaesia, right?
Yeah.
So at least we get to spend some nice time. We might be on a death march to the next siege, but Lakeside. Nice views.
Well,
a beautiful breeze rolling in off the water.
Yes, it's a beautiful place for vacation.
Yes.
But it loses all, it's a bad reference point after a while because it's like, it's so big.
Yeah.
And they're always there.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't.
Well, are they on that? I feel like that's why I have to be like, well, they came up to one side of it. And now they have to walk around to the other side of it. Is that the vibe? Yeah. But Aragon has spent the long journey here to this other part of Lake Leona trying to figure out what the hell Glader meant by telling him to, again, quote, to see what you are looking at. And the best our Stumptime King has come up with is basically just staring very intently at everything he sees on the road. And as far as learning and growing goes, I guess Aragon is doing better than his first foray into Stumptime because he does know now that there's something he's missing. Before he was just like, saw the ants, I got it or a miss, what next?
There was ants.
But he just can't figure out what the thing is that he's missing here. And the intense staring has at least worked where sparring with Arya is concerned because he's managed to beat her a few times.
Well,
because he's like staring at her so
she's
hard.
She's like, geez, this guy's creeping me out.
Yes, 100%. So Aragon sets off to wander the camp and worry about everyone's impending doom when he runs across Nargashbra. Yes, and his Urkel friends sitting with dozens of werecats around a campfire. And the two most mysterious races in Alagaesia seem like mighty cozy bedfellows here. I kind of liked the scene.
Yeah.
It was a cool picture, I felt like, of the feral cats like lounging in the arms of the Urgles. Like the Urgles are petting them. I feel like a super villain, like a Bond villain. It's very fun. But this kooky little gathering would not be complete, Dane, of course, without your girl. You know she's here.
Yeah, Angela's here for some reason.
Yes,
she is.
And you know she's holding court at this gathering. She's telling a story about a giant killer rabbit.
Of course she is. What else would she be telling a story about?
Yes, there's something about a siege that's broken by a bunch of dragons, like led by a diamond-scaled dragon, which was fucking cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Sounds like in this story, dragons have come to the aid of the dwarves, which confused me a bit, but whatever.
Yeah, hey.
It's kind of a cool story. The Urgles and werecats love it, but Aragon pops into actually, Angela, as everybody leaves, he's like, I've heard that bit of history, and that's not how I heard it. And you're like, dude, don't be such a nerd.
Well, it's like
that's for us. That's for nerd culture.
Yeah, we do that.
Yeah.
But also, like, I'm not even a big fan of Angela. I'm like, dude, you're not making it in with the cool kids.
No,
and you keep
dude.
being like this.
Yeah, he like watches from the fringes, and he comes in and he's like, actually... Oh, Aragon. But shockingly, after everything we've been through over 3 books, Aragon is still repressing the urge to attack the Urgles as all of this happens. So I feel like he's having just tough look after tough look right here. Yeah. He really needs to get the racism in check because Garthbra is the coolest. And like that streak continues right along through this chapter.
He's the bra.
Yes. The Urgle leader is in the process of inviting Angela over to the after party at the to hear the Urgles stories of a place called Stavarosk. When Aragon asks what that is, the Urgles all lose their shit. They're like, how could you not know? It's one of our like greatest victories. And this is history that you cannot tell in Gal's empire, because this was the story of like the time in the spine when a third of Galbatorix's army went missing.
Yeah, all the way back like first book, 4th chapter, right?
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, so Garthbra, he says that Gal is, quote, a lack-horned betrayer for keeping this information from the people. And they like... I feel like I love that the Urgles are really the foundation of why the spine is spooky.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yes. Garthbra sets off from Aragon and Angela, determined to teach the songs of Stavarosk to every human bard he can find.
Could you imagine?
Dude, that's exactly what Angela says. I'm totally with her. She's like, I just can't wait to find out what's going to happen when a band of Cull and a theater kid get to talking over what songs they should sing. It's so good. So we're left with Aragon and Angela chatting while the queen of the werecats, with a super badass name, Shadowhunter, just purrs contentedly in Aragon's lap. And Angela actually seems willing to answer some of Aragon's questions in this scene, but we happen to kick off with a quintessentially Angela aside in which she just lists all the collective names for animals.
Cool.
Like, it's fun to remember a group of owls that's called a parliament, but like not necessarily part of the story.
But she's kooky.
She's eccentric, Dane. But then Angela reveals that the Urgles call her Mooneater because when she traveled to their villages, she ate the moon.
Oh, yeah.
No further explanation on that.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So Aragon just moves it. Well, he's like, whatever, she's not going to tell me anymore.
Yeah.
He's trying to figure out what she meant when she said cheap, cheap to Grimmer Halfpaw in our last section. And apparently when she first met the king of the werecats, he was torturing a little bird. And Angela did not like that. And she did not like that enough to curse the werecat to chirp like a bird instead of talking for a week. And I'm just like, Angela.
Again, a king.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I like that she didn't. I feel like it wouldn't be surprising to see Angela do something like this, but like forever. I'm surprised that she cut herself off after a week, of cheaping. I'm like,
yeah,
good for you. You've got limits.
I mean, there's just a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions. I got a lot of just ask. It opens more questions. She eats the moon. She's cursing kings. I don't know.
She's a mystery.
She's
the whole point. Christopher Paolini.
She's so
great
cool.
at building a mystery.
She is cool. I'll give her
yes,
that.
but this chapter ends as we hear a scream from deep into the camp. Presumably, whatever unfortunate singer-songwriter is being briefed on the finer points of Urkel composition with his acoustic guitar by the campfire. Poor guy.
Poor dude. He was about to do Wonderwall.
I
Is that
know.
another? I did two. Is this two back-to-back Wonderwall jokes?
That's correct.
I'll
That's
apologize,
correct.
everybody. I'll update some. I'll get some new songs to
Yeah.
talk about.
Matchbox 20, push.
Yeah, there we go.
Don't sing it, Dan.
No.
I can see it in your eyes.
But come on. All right. Anyway, chapter 15, Rumors and Writing. We stay with Aragon in this chapter, and it's late after a long day of flying around. He opens his mind to touch the world around him, seeing a sea of lights, while he meditates and listens to everything and nothing.
Classic stump time.
Yeah. In the camp, he does pick up some of the Varden soldiers' hate for the elves, and they're worried that the elves will want their old lands back. After the war, which seems normal and expected.
Yeah.
He also hears some conversations insinuating that Aragon himself is more elf than human at this point. And I want more of this scattered throughout all of these books. I love hearing what normal people think in this series. We also hear talk of a guy named Lord Barst.
Yes.
Apparently he's one of our big bad guys, an earl with an estate by Gilead who drowned his own horses rather than let the elves have them when they come and knock. And Alagaesia is not a place for horses.
I'm going to say, hey, that shit doesn't fly with Horsefacts Dane.
Yeah, that's a no for
me. We will
me.
not tolerate that horse mistreatment on this podcast.
Hold on. Horsefacts. Not cool, Lord Barst. Anyway, Barst also allegedly went recruiting men for Gal's army, and when the villagers tried to fight Barst and his soldiers off, he killed half of them, took their leader, killed the guy by taking his head off with his bare hands, and then burned the whole dude's family.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, this guy sounds like, you know what he was trying, I think what he was trying to do and what it sounded like is like, this is kind of a roaring Stronghammer type, but like evil, right? Like a normal dude, but like with mystical things, like he's killed an ox with a punch.
Yeah.
And he's very clever. I think this is the evil roaring Stronghammer.
I love that the one you glaze over is killed an ox with a punch.
Well, it's
wild.
It just sounds random. Like, why?
Well, yeah, you're right. Exactly the same way it would sound random when somebody's like, yeah, that's Stronghammer. He killed 197 soldiers at the battle, and you're like, oh,
It's 193.
Oh, sorry.
All right, let's not give him an extra 4.
7 short is what I always am like. There's a 7 in there somewhere.
You were
but
right.
7
7
short of 200 is what I need to remember better.
Well, while we meditate on roaring killing people, we get back.
Our favorite.
Yeah, we get. That's all we get before Aragon stops his meditation and begins working on perfecting his handwriting and journaling for the night.
We need to take a note, Dane.
Yeah, Garrow's rolling in his grave. Am I right? What a waste of time.
Not to mention a waste of paper. It's just like resource waste.
Just a waste of everything. After this absurd endeavor, he continues his work to create what basically is a spell book.
Yeah.
Of all the stuff he's learned to this point, written not only in the ancient language, but in the Elven script and style.
Yeah.
It's a good practice, but also now will be hard for anyone other than an elf to get anything useful from his book.
Yeah.
Of course, even the elven glyphs are superior.
Yeah,
Duh.
they have like a flowing, artistically beautiful style of writing, right?
So ridiculous. After all this, his nighttime routine concludes with his work on communing with Glader and reading to the unresponsive dragon. Reads him a bedtime story.
No.
It's a nice night, all things considered.
Nice.
And it doesn't seem like he's getting his 8 hours in, though. You know what I mean? I feel like...
No, well, I mean, he only needs to transfer so long, and I feel like I'm always trying to tell you the same thing, Dane. There's like a treasure trove of extra time waiting for you if you just don't sleep. You could be doing so much more if it's if you just want to destroy your mental and physical health for the hustle, this is America.
This is a real thing me and Jackie argue about on the regular basis.
It's fine. There are a lot of people, listeners, so many people I know who tell me I can't do this forever. Yeah. I know this. I'm working on it.
Gonna have to sleep eventually, Jackie.
I'm working on it. I'm getting better the older I get.
Yes.
I think. That does take us to chapter 16, Aroughs, that weird discussion. Segues right in.
We're really like revealing a lot of ourselves here too.
Yeah. Whoops. Yeah. As this chapter title suggests, we're back again with Roran as he arrives at the Vardens' camp outside of Aroughs. Stronghammer and his crew seem like they're really on the brink of death as a runner heads off to find the current captain of this siege, so the guy that Roran's deposing.
Yeah.
And as this brigman comes into view, I'm immediately suspicious of this guy because in his description, it says he has a full beard but no mustache. That's just a weird look, in my opinion.
It's an odd one.
No, that's as untrustworthy as
if you're
illiteracy.
If you're a listener right now and you have that facial hair, it's not you. You're not weird. But this guy's weird.
This guy's weird.
Yeah.
If you have that facial hair, just know how people perceive you is all I'm saying.
No.
Almost as untrustworthy as Nasuada thinks illiteracy is.
No, Garrow. Nasuada's not coming for illiteracy. Oh,
yes, she was.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be Garrow.
No, Garrow thinks illiteracy is good. That's why he didn't teach us boys to read. He's pro-illiteracy. As it turns out, though, this guy Brigman is as much of a dick as his facial hair would indicate, and he seems less than thrilled that Roran is here to usurp his command. Yeah. That kind of does make sense to me. That does seem kind of fair.
Like, I'm here to take your job.
Yeah.
Like,
you're doing kind of shitty. Here I am.
We all think it.
You're welcome. It's like, ooh, that's a bad day at work for Brigman.
Yes.
But right off the bat, they have a pissing match when Roran wants to call off the morning's imminent attack until he can rest and get the lay of the land. So, like, Brigman is about to launch like an attack on the walls, and Roran's like, no, send everybody off.
Stop that.
Yes. So after some classic Roran threats of violence, we love it. Love to see it. Brigman stands down, so Roran wins for the time being.
He brings the hammer down.
He does always bring the hammer down, Dane. That other hammer's got to drop eventually. Isn't that what they always say?
Roran's like, stop. Hammer time. There we go. That's another reference.
Yeah.
I've never done that before.
It was one of our episode titles.
That's fair.
Notably.
That is fair. All right.
But that was a long time ago. So
yeah.
We're bring it back around.
Everyone would have forgot if we didn't pull it out.
It's a callback. That's what we call that. We meant it. We're not just making the same jokes.
We are off the rails today.
A little bit. I was just thinking we don't make the same jokes because our brains only work on one track at a time. We're just making callbacks, which is great for comedy.
Yeah.
Gotta sell it, Dane.
So what the heck is Roran up to?
Yes, he sleeps for a little bit. And when he wakes up, it felt very like classic farmer mentality to me. It's still the morning when he wakes up, but he's pissed. He's like, I've slept the day away. I've already squandered the day. And you're like, dude, calm down, please. You don't have to wake at dawn, I swear.
He's a farmer.
There aren't goats waiting for you anywhere. But he and his fellow riders are impossibly sore and stiff, so Roran starts by walking up and down every single row of tents in the camp. He's like, this will limber us up. He's getting the lay of the land, and his grand tour lands him looking up at the impossibly high walls of the well-fortified and well-provisioned city. Brigman comes to join them to give them a little update on the state of the siege, and Roran is really starting to feel defeated as the erstwhile captain is relating the story of an informant he had who was supposed to let the rebels into the city and whose head now sits on a pike on the wall. So Roran's like, this is pretty bad. This is bad. I don't like it.
Yeah, that's not great.
Add to that an opposing spellcaster that they know is in the city, and I'm seeing why Roran's feeling just a little touch hopeless here.
Yeah, I mean, magic is like it's the thing.
Yes.
It's like the thing.
Yeah,
right?
definitely the trump card in this world. But in all the description of Aroughs' gates and walls, Roran's interest is only really piqued by talk of the canals that run into the city and power its mills. And so he gets a full recap of every single attack of the siege so far while they're on their way to see these mills. And it seems like a bit of overkill, but I guess our violent guy just likes a violent story.
Well, he just was like, also, I almost worked at a mill. Like, there's a lot of mill talk.
True. For now, all Roran has is Karn's concern about dismantling Aroughs' defensive spells and his wistful memories of that time he was going to be a miller in Theransford.
There you go.
He like thinks he's like, if only I could have been the miller before, the whole world went to shit. He's really digging back in the archives for that one. He's doing a callback of his own.
Yeah, that's good for you, Rory.
Yeah. But shockingly, miraculously, the steady white noise of the water wheels and a quick conversation about sluice gates gives Roran his eureka moment, and a plan comes to him. Do we know what the plan is?
No.
Of course not. This is a story, for God's sakes, Dane. Everyone is shocked by the audacity of this mystery plan, but the Carvajallers obviously hop right on the bandwagon with their boy and defend the plan to the point that Mandel almost comes to blows with Brigman. And Brigman is, I think, kind of justifiably just as he's like, this does not seem like it would work.
Also, second Carvajaller that's just like gone for the throat of anyone who's like a little bit annoying.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's correct. For his part, Karn does also have some reservations, kind of like Brigman, but he is down to do it just for the plot. He's like, whatever, that'd make my life more fun.
You're my bro.
Yeah, and so Roran rouses everyone with a classic internet Einstein quote that the only crazy thing to do would be to keep trying the same failing move over and over. So the chapter ends with Roran once again winning at dick measuring as Brigman stands down, and we'll have to wait to see what the hell this harebrained plan is.
And we always knew Roran was going to win the dick measuring contest.
I mean,
we always do.
Yeah. He's terrifying to behold.
Yeah,
everyone is scared of him.
Everyone's like, he's a little crazy.
He would absolutely kill me.
Yeah.
Like, there's no doubt of that when you look at Roran.
It's hard to win against an insane person.
It's correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Well,
something I'm very, very familiar with. LOL.
Chapter 17, Dras-Leona. Aragon and Saphira are nearing Dras-Leona as they continue. Dras-Leona is the centerpiece of the story. Just get around, and you guessed it, it's Lake Leona, our favorite landmark. It does seem like it comes up a lot, and I keep saying that every time. I'm so sorry. There are people fleeing, and the city looks much like it always has, terrifying and full of evil cultists. Aragon gets the thought that maybe Dras-Leona and every man, woman, and child in it, including the slaves and cripples, should burn to the ground. And it's the first time I've read something and thought, now this is something the haters would love.
Yeah.
Because it's not a great look for our boy Aragon.
No.
And then I remember his father was killed as they fled from here.
Yeah.
And his father-uncle was killed by the residents' Eldritch whores.
Yeah.
And that his sister-in-law was imprisoned here by those same boogie birds. And that maybe Aragon doesn't have the capacity for rational thinking when it comes to Dras-Leona and the people who inhabit it. His feelings might be unhinged a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
A little bit.
You know
I mean, I guess it's like, how many big T traumas do you need before you start contemplating doing a war crime?
Everyone go ask your therapist this later on this
how
week.
How many deep core wounds am I allowed before? The answer is the limit does not exist. You're never allowed to contemplate war crimes.
Yeah, you hit her here first, guys.
We're firmly anti-war
We're
crime.
anti-war crime here.
Hot take.
Well, there is no time to contemplate all of that because Aragon is struck while thinking about the raising of the temple as to whether there's a name for this gross religion before he burns it to the ground.
Great.
He does appreciate the importance of names and would want to figure that out so he can fully understand the religion
Yeah.
and then destroy it.
Oh, yeah, great. That'll help. I'm sure they'll feel much better knowing that he really took the time to get to know them before he killed them all.
Yeah, they'll all feel better about it. After musing on war crimes and mass murder, Aragon lands to help the Varden soldiers, really working on his PR strategy for the war.
Yes.
And I imagine posters with Aragon's sleeves rolled up and like dirt on his brow that say, I did my part.
He's Rosie the Riveter.
Yes.
Amazing.
Anyway, he starts working first to help flatten the land with planks and ropes, and then to construct siege engines. Apparently, he's strong enough to lift beams that would take many men, so he's speeding the whole process up.
Yeah.
And I forget how strong our little bean farmer is until it's in great description told to us. Kevin's grown up. You know, he's doing what he's got to do. Not you, Kevin. This Kevin. Saphira can also do the work of teams of men.
Yeah.
And he's doing it with all, whole trenches in minutes.
Yeah, I liked watching them level up like this.
Yeah, I mean, this would take many days.
Yeah.
What they're doing.
I feel like it reminds me of the beginning of Eldest when they're kind of working in the tunnels under Farthendor with the dwarves. And you're
just,
like, yes, get them.
They can do so much.
Yeah.
Aragon meditates before bed and goes into his waking dreams, but he's having some trouble sleeping with battle on the horizon. And Saphira is just excited. and just never forget how terrifying she is because she's dreaming about ripping and tearing things apart. This dragon is intense. I just imagine like.
What do you dream of, Dane? Not that.
Well, I just imagine
Weird.
like. We get Aragorn's consciousness as like bird sounds and harps, in his like conscious, and then like maybe music that you play when you're in a massage, like a gong somewhere or something, and like beautiful vistas and forests overlooking lakes. He's just like going to beautiful places, and then we cut to Saphira. It's like thunderous metal music. Maybe that song like "Let the Bodies Hit the Floor" blaring at all hours. There's like picturesque scenes of murder with like strobe lights overhead. It's like whatever helps you sleep, baby.
Yeah. I don't know if that's her lullaby. Who am I to begrudge her?
If it works, whatever.
I mean, mostly because I'm scared of her, so she should do whatever she wants.
I think that's everyone's vibe.
Yeah.
When morning comes, the Varden assembles outside Dras-Leona, and Aragorn takes it all in, thinking about how ragged the Varden army is getting with the constant battling of well-defended cities, with fresh soldiers just waiting inside.
Yeah.
Nasuada, King Orin, and Aragorn approach the city, and 2 heralds for the Varden and Serta are sent inside.
Amazing.
Well, they're outside the gates, but
yeah.
there's disquiet right away. As Saphira thinks, quote, "The air smells wrong."
Ooh.
Yeah, right after Aragorn thinks the city's too quiet.
Okay.
He's like, there's something
ominous.
There is something wrong.
Yeah.
They herald out to Marcus Tabor. Remember him, Jax?
Yeah.
All the way from the first book when Gal was coming to visit. He's still around.
Amazing.
Yeah, we still get Marcus Tabor
Well, why
updates.
wouldn't he be? Well, to be honest, I am a little surprised that Galbatorix didn't kill him. I feel like a state visit from Gal is probably
It's not a good
what
thing.
you want.
Yeah. Anyway, I find this pretty interesting because we get the sales pitch of the Varden.
Yeah.
So basically, they claim to only have a problem with Galbatorix. They go on to say that most of those in the Varden are people who have also escaped the Empire, so they're kin to the people inside Dras-Leona.
Yeah.
Also, they will let all leadership and their families live, which I think is very nice, along with all the soldiers, if they lay down their arms and let the rebels take the city, which frankly actually is a very good deal.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. If I were...
Normally, the leaders don't get that deal.
No, if I were in charge of a city during a war, I'd be like, yeah, I don't want to fight anybody.
Sounds great to me.
Yeah.
Finally, they end their deal with a threat. If they refuse, the Varden is going to break in with their army, and the Dragon Rider will do his thing.
Yep.
That is when we find out Murtagh
Ooh.
is the person the heralds are all chatting with at the gates. And he and Thorn, and apparently the priests of Helgrind surrounding him, will not let the city be taken.
Oof.
And that is where we end this episode. Talk about a high note.
You don't love to see it.
Yeah.
Much as I would love to know immediately how this confrontation with Murtagh and Thorn is going to play out, we do have some analyzing to do before we get there, Dane.
Ooh, is it time for an analysis?
Yes.
It's time for analysis.
I know in a lot of ways this section of chapters felt a little chaotic while we were reading it. Like, I think we both made comments about the constantly changing tones and settings and point of views in this set of chapters. And I'm personally inclined to read that as a choice in the pacing to intentionally kind of overstimulate us as readers, like put us a little on edge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think you often see things like this in big climactic, like set piece type scenes to heighten tension.
Yeah.
But here in the earlier part of the book, it strikes me more as a device that might be aimed at drawing our attention to the ways our characters are probably feeling a little chaotic themselves at this point in the story. It seems the theme in these chapters centers on the transitions Aragorn, Rorin, and the war writ large are weathering, and I think this narrative whiplash is a good mirror for that. Rorin most obviously gets his big promotion and is thrown straight into the deep end of military leadership, taking charge of an intractable siege. And if that isn't transition enough for Stronghammer, he's making a mad dash on horseback to reach his new post, a far cry from the slow exodus on foot we saw him make throughout the entire book of Eldest. Yeah, he's covering this huge distance in 4 days. He's just all over the place.
It's not
physically. Yeah. And we keep talking about the toll the war is taking on our brother cousin because it's really been the main focus, I think, of his character development since he rescued Katrina. You know, that was his character development. That was part of the end of the arc of his hero's journey almost. And now we're getting all this resolution of how the war is changing him and making him grim, you know?
Yeah, it's more and more becoming Katrina plus.
Yes, exactly. So much more on that later.
Oh, okay.
next episode, particularly. But in these chapters, it really feels like his promotion to captain, journey to Aroughs, and handling of the situation on the ground there is this transition for Rorin to reach his final form, kind of the person he's going to be when the story ends.
Yeah.
And Aragon would never leave his brother cousin alone in transition, Dane.
Never.
Though the miles separate our boys, their spiritual journeys progress as one. I love that for them. Aragon's storyline also feels very much in flux through this section. He's moving on to a more difficult siege at Dras-Leona, with his chapters exclusively being travel sections. And if I've misread that as a cue for transitions, like, please fire me from analysis. That would be embarrassing. But there are subtler ties, I think, we see to transitions for Aragon, where the action of his story is on a grand scale, like moving a massive army across an empire to fight for the fate of the free world. Aragon's actual focus is on the smaller changes in his world, I think, right now. And for me, it's the contrast between the two that really highlights the feeling of transition in the little things Aragon's doing. We get several scenes of him doing his stump time, observing the transitions in the people and creatures around him. We also see him working to improve what's inside his control right now, like his sword fighting and his penmanship, which I may have made light of in the summaries because it's like a little goofy, but I really do think is like aimed to show growth and transition for his character, like to channel what's very uncertain for him right now about the world and like pursue things that bring him peace, and
bring him joy, because it's clearly he likes learning, and all of that is tied to writing and,
exactly. And I think it feels more mature than the Bean Farmer. We like to poke fun at it on just like very rare occasions. I know we don't do it a lot.
We don't bring it up often.
No. And I think Aragon's like small transitions in the face of global chaos really set the stage for Glader's awakening in this section. It's a huge signal that we're transitioning to a new level of complexity in this story as the Eldonari become a factor in the war strategy. And all of Aragon's focus on the minutia feel like tailor-made to acclimate us to like the Zen stoicism of the dragons, and it feels up Glader's alley to have Aragon focusing on things that Glader and Ormus taught him.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
100%.
So I think it makes perfect sense that this is the first time Glader pops up to be like, wear your glasses and go with me on this because it's gonna really get wild. But I think even the scene of like Werecat Urgel story hour, it's obviously a really evocative visual, at least for me, that drives home the idea that this war in general is an inflection point for the way these races have been interacting on this continent for like all of recorded history. Like we are seeing groups of people and cultures mix in a melting pot that has never existed before. And like however things end, the transition is already in motion. And Christopher Paolini, I think, is finding little ways like this like campfire scene to show that in this set of chapters. So ultimately, I think the narrative chaos and differing scales of focus give me the overall feeling that everything is changing. Everyone's story is in flux here. And in a chunk of this book that might feel a little bit all over the place, I'm left with the impression that we're driving like all of these plot lines forward towards bigger, badder challenges.
Cool. I like that.
We're building up. Last book.
Build back better.
Yes. With all of this stuff ratcheting up, are you ready to dive deep, Dane?
Heck yeah. Deep dive. This week, I want to do a deep dive for a quick catch-up on where we are on the war.
Amazing.
Before anything escalates any more quickly, I want to consolidate everything we know about the Varden and their position.
Is this going to be like an old-timey newsreel style?
The whole time? That'd be hilarious.
I just want you to do a 10-minute bit, Dane. Go.
I promise, listener, I will not do that to you. The war against good old Gal and his evil empire officially kicked off when our brave rebel forces pulled off a badass victory at Featherdur. There, our new dragon rider killed the Shade Durza and liberated the mind-controlled Urgel army.
Yes.
This marked the first triumph for the rebel alliance, with the Dwarven nation and a small contingent of the Varden army pulling off this upset.
Yeah.
A small setback ensued when the Varden's longtime leader, Ajahad, was murdered by marauding Urgels.
R.I.P. King Daddy.
Yes, but his daughter, Nasuada, succeeded him on the throne.
All hail Queen President!
And rallied the rebels to capitalize on the victory and pursue open conflict.
Ooh, yep.
Following this, the Varden regrouped with the bulk of its forces in Serda and formally added the Serdan army to the coalition before securing the allegiances of the wandering tribes with the Trial of the Long Knives. This newly combined army then marched from Serda into the Empire proper, with the Dwarven army rushing to join them. Meanwhile, up north in Alagaesia, the town of Carvajal, yearning for the freedom against their tyrannical king and his boogie boys, rebelled against the Empire and troops sent to capture Rorin.
Get him.
Yeah, scoring a small but significant victory against the Empire's soldiers and the Vile Razak.
Worth noting.
Yeah, worth noting. It's got to be in here. The Battle of the Burning Plains happened next, right outside the certain border, and was a turning point, a major victory on Empire soil, where we witnessed the emergence of the new enemy dragon rider, Murtagh, and his dragon Thorn.
It's your boy. We hate to see it.
And it was the loss of our beloved Dwarven daddy Hrothgar.
Oh.
But also the addition to the Urgal tribes under Nagashbra and the Varden Alliance. In the days following, the heroic brother-cousin duo Rorn and Aragon got revenge on both the Razak and Leatherblocka.
Yes.
While the elves emerged from Duwelden Varden to capture the city of Seanon, officially joining the war effort.
It was terrifying.
It was terrifying. That's where Islanzade was putting
blood
on gloves
up to her elbows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the same time, the Dwarven troops left the rebel army to elect a new king in Trondheim.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly after Aragon returned from his 3-book revenge plot, the Varden pushed deeper into Imperial territory. A battle near the Jeet River marked the first encounter with the Empire's Laughing Dead, a pretty spooky foe immune to pain due to Galbatorix's evil magics.
Not what you want.
Yeah. Despite this, and with the help of the Sex Panther and his merry murdering elves, Aragon managed to repel Murtagh and Thorn. Aragon was then sent to secure a pro-Varden Dwarven king in Trondheim, who would bring his forces back to aid the Rebel Alliance before he headed to Duwelden Varden to find a new weapon to aid him in besting his half-brother and sad emo lone warrior who for sure wears eyeliner, Murtagh.
Saddest boy wins.
Saddest boy wins. When Aragon came back with his new sword, Brisingar, a siege of Feinster got underway at the same time as the Battle of Gilead, with the Varden forces and the Urgal and certain allies breaching Feinster's gates. And Arya and Aragon vanquished a newly created Shade.
Yes.
Fun.
Everyone's a Shade Slayer.
They're both Shade Slayers now.
So nice.
So cute. Meanwhile, the elves secured Gilead with ease, though they did have that little oopsie where they lost their greatest allies, the Ancient Rider and his dragon Ormus and Glader, at the hands of Galbatorix.
Yes, forget about that.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Magic Daddy.
Yeah. Next, the main Varden host captured Bellatona, and the Werecats joined the Rebel Alliance at the end of the battle. The Dwarven army, led by their newly elected King Oric, have hit the road to join the Varden at the siege of Dras-Leona, and the Stronghammer has been sent to put down the siege of Aroughs and bring the bulk of those troops back to Dras-Leona as quickly as he can.
Yeah.
As we stand, the united forces of the Varden rebels, Certain Nation, Wandering Tribes, Dwarven clans, Elven families, Urgal tribes, and Werecat people are all engaged in this war.
Get 'em!
With only the elves yet to fully join the main body of the army. After the Varden takes Dras-Leona, the path to the Empire's capital, Erlbane, will be clear.
Get 'em!
Yeah.
I mean, when you put it like that, it sounds like they couldn't possibly lose, and then you remember everything about Galbatorix.
Everything else. Yeah. The Varden Alliance has been faced with several setbacks. The first and most serious problem has been Murtagh and Thorn. Aragon and Saphir have had trouble keeping them at bay during every combat. And frankly, how they can beat Galbatorix if they can't even beat the King's baby rider is a real question.
Yeah.
Second and equally challenging setback is twofold. The Empire's troops are warded heavily. Some of them are changed to feel no pain. And at the very least, every soldier has sworn in the ancient language to be the perfect soldier. And they must follow orders to a T.
Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad.
This has made taking cities and even prisoners of war a real struggle. Finally, even the citizens of the Empire have been selected in random clusters to swear oaths of fealty to good old Gal. So sabotaging and acts of violence and rebellion have been a constant threat to the Varden Alliance in newly won territory.
That's right.
There also seems to be a real pressure on supplies and pacing. As we have read several times through the long siege, there are questions about money.
Yeah.
And it's a real serious issue here. Also, we know the rebels' army's numbers and supplies are little in comparison to the Empire's men and what they can bring to bear.
Yeah.
So, as much of the Varden Alliance has been winning so far, it has cost them much, much more to continue at this step than it has been for the Empire to resist.
Oof.
And that is your war update.
That sucks. That's bleak.
Yeah. You know who's bleak sometimes?
Who's bleak?
Actually, you should do your research, huh? Have you even read it? How you pronounce it?
What are the haters saying?
No, there is an index in the back, right?
This is really derivative.
Oh, this week. I can feel you haters looking at me here with your psychopathic killer stuff from the Aragon section.
Yeah.
Where you thought about raising the city.
Yeah.
For those of you giving me that look right now, I'll refer you to the last episode of Season 3 for my response to that. I stand behind it.
Okay.
I do see you, though, and yeah, it's a bit of a rough look in these chapters. But one incident is not the whole series, and I'm sure you're thinking, if not psychopathic Aragon, surely it'll be the whole Roran thinking about how viciously murdering Nighthawks was going to go. And I hear you. Haters, again, it doesn't change anything I feel. It's not great, but on balance with the rest of the characterization, I think we can move past it.
Yeah.
This week, what I actually want to talk about is the sword fighting scene in this section of chapters. The one where Aragon is beaten by the elves left and right. Mostly Arya. And I have to say that logic of this is sound. Aragon's a teenager, just a few years into his sword training. But the problem the haters have here is that we have established that he is a master.
Yeah.
To quote Brahm from the first book.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Quote, Brahm shook his head. I can teach you nothing more of the sword. Of all the fighters I've met, only 3 of them could have defeated me like that. And I doubt any of them could have done it with their left hand.
Oh, yeah.
He smiled ruefully. I may not be as young as I used to be, but I can tell that you're a talented and rare swordsman.
Yeah.
First book.
Throw it way back.
Yeah. On top of that, Oramus says in Eldis, I have not to teach. You are as good a swordsman as ever I have met. I know no more fighting than you, and that which I possess, you do not. I cannot give you. All that remains for you is to preserve your current level of skill.
Yeah.
But wait, there's more. Also from Eldis, Vanner drops his blade.
Oh, yeah.
His face turning white with shock. How swift is your sword? He said. By the gods, exclaimed Ulrich. That was the best swordsmanship I've ever seen. And I was there when you fought Arya and Farthendor. Then Vanner did what Aragon had never expected. The elf twisted his uninjured hand in the gesture of fealty, placed it upon his sternum, and bowed. I beg your pardon for my earlier behavior, Aragon Elda. I thought you had consigned my race to the void, and out of that fear, I acted most shamefully. However, it seems that your race no longer endangers our cause. In a grudging voice, he said, you are now worthy of the title Rider.
Damn.
That's another quote. And I share these because...
Draco Elfoy.
Yeah, Draco Elfoy. We do miss him. Banner was a good one.
Yeah.
I share these because much of what Paolini has shown us as readers and what we have heard throughout the whole series from reliable sources in this matter is that Aragon is a teenager who's essentially a sword-fighting prodigy.
Yeah.
Unlike Murtagh, who's been training since his childhood, or Brahm or Arya, or Vanner, who've been training for decades, or even Oramus, who's been training for centuries, Aragon's been training at best for 2 years. Yeah. And yet he is considered a master, or at the very least, extremely talented by all of those people. If this was once... or one chapter, or just Aragon's perspective, my whole thought here would be different. But it isn't any of those things because Paolini has gone out of his way to include this information over and over. On top of this, Aragon now has Brisingar, a blade made for his fighting style and designed for his body by the best craftsman in Alagaesia, who claims it is her finest blade she has ever crafted. So he's working with the best tool on earth, essentially, that is exclusively an extension of his being. Right?
Yeah.
So why is he being so consistently beaten by the elves? And an even better question, why is he being beaten by Murtagh in their conflicts?
Yeah.
This is something the haters feel 2 ways about. Some haters think Aragon shouldn't be this good. But other haters think if Aragon is this good, as we've been demonstrated in the story, why doesn't it seem to matter when the chips are down? And I think this is a fair question and something that as a kid, I actually did not understand at all. And it actually really bothered me even when I read this book for the first time, this last one, when I was 19 years old. And for this particular gripe of the haters, the fans actually make it worse. Murtagh's a well-loved character, and so is Arya. And if we're being honest... It should already be clear that Murtagh is one of my favorite characters. So I understand the urge to want your favorites to be the best. The same is true with Arya. I may have problems with her, but almost all of them have to do more with the romance in this book, age differences, the characterizations of some of her choices. It has nothing to do with her. She's cool. So I really don't think this hate boils down to a preference thing. This is something that I think might just be a mistake. Let's start with Murtagh. If we're working on the premise that Aragon has the attributes of an elf, we have been shown throughout the series that the elves are superior in the ways of combat, not only because of their superhuman endurance and strength, but because they prize flexibility and deftness and have the centuries to master that. Even in this section, essentially what we are coming down to is that there is no human swordsmaster who could beat an elven swordsmaster.
Yeah.
Maybe it's possible, but do we think Murtag's swordmaster was that good? And I don't think we can make that leap. But even if it were so, even if we could, would this teenage apprentice be that good? Because Aragon's had 5 teachers, all but one of them superhuman, all of them masters of the blade. He is a prodigy, and his body is actually superhuman.
Yeah.
The idea that Murtag's years of experience can compete with that, while possible, I guess, does not seem consistent with the point Paolini is constantly making about the elves.
Yeah.
So I think he made a mistake here. But if you write hard for Murtag's sword supremacy, and you're shaking your head right now and saying not only has he been trained since birth, but he has Eldenari with him, giving him the strength and his speed equal to Aragon's, to you fans, I just disagree here. I personally don't buy it. We have been told by Ormus that super strength and speed is something you just can't augment and give to yourself.
Yeah.
But if you could, it would be confusing on your body.
That's right.
I wonder, do these Eldenari give him his energy all the time? Like, do they give him that strength and speed?
Yeah.
Even when Murtag is, like, sleeping and, like, taking a whiz and stuff?
Right?
Because like if not, like, why isn't this confusing for his body to fight with all this extra energy and all the speed and extra strength? Aragon's living in this thing every day after he's been changed, right? He's practicing in it, he's sleeping in it. It makes sense that he would have a mastery of his body that Murtag doesn't.
Yeah.
Right? And it seems to work that way with Thorn.
That's right.
Saphira thinks about how he's clumsy and unaccustomed to his large body.
And because we've seen him grow
Yes.
absurdly fast.
Absurdly fast. Why would this be different for Murtag? And if you still don't agree with me, that is fine. I get it. And I even think I understand. But my point is not merely about the facts, it's about how Aragon's strength has been presented this far.
Yeah.
Which leads to the superhuman problem, which is maybe Paolini didn't want Aragon to appear like a Superman and have no conflicts or challenges.
Yeah.
And maybe he gave him a friend like Arya to make this clear. I actually think this has a lot to do with what's going on here. I think this is what he's trying to do. The problem with his answer, though, is it leaves Aragon's real strength as a character unclear. From book 1, or at the very least from book 2, we should know. And I mean, we should know, like, everyone who's read this should easily be able to point to what strength Aragon has that makes him the hero of our story.
Yeah.
If he's going to continually be bested in dragon fights, magic duels, and now sword fights.
Yeah.
It could easily be something totally, like, intangible, like grit or honesty. But the problem is that this far into the series, I don't think you could get the same answer even half the time if you asked like 15 fans. Like, what's his X factor?
Yeah.
And with all of the time Paolini spent writing scenes of training, dueling, and even sword crafting, I think this is supposed to be his thing. Sword fighting is supposed to be his thing.
Yeah.
So I think for this hater segment, whether you're a fan of one of the other superhumans like Arya or Murtag, or you're a hater on either side of the Aragon swordman stance, I think it amounts to the same problem. And it isn't one I've talked about before. This whole thing might just be a mistake from Christopher Paolini, and that's totally okay. It doesn't have to diminish the series or Aragon as a character, but it happens to some of the best authors.
Yeah.
And it's a miss for me this time. And so to you haters, you win this one. I will cede this point.
Alas.
I know, it's finally happened. And to you fans, I'm sorry you took the L today. As Aragon has shown us, you can't win them all.
Oh, no. Never did I think I would see the day, unless I'm fundamentally misunderstanding.
Yeah.
You, Dane Patterson,
Yep.
have more of a problem with Murtag being too good than you do with Arya being too good. You think it kind of makes sense for Arya to be the best, and you don't think it makes sense for your boy Murtag to be the best.
As much as it pains me to say this,
you physically look pained,
it really hurts me. Arya
that kind of
is
makes
cool.
sense.
The way she's been characterized. It makes sense.
Tracks that, like, she has some level of experience that's going to let her be better than the teenager.
Yeah, and Murtag is also, I mean, like, I think he's actually supposed to be like Roran's age. He's like 20s.
Yeah.
But, like, it just doesn't make sense here. So, yeah, it's painful.
I'm so proud of you.
So
Listen,
painful.
if that's not growth for you to admit that, I'm so sorry your face is
I'm sorry, Murtag. I'm sorry, Murtag.
I hate to point this out, but you've probably made him more emo that his biggest champion has turned against him in this way.
I've definitely made myself more emotional.
Well, I think on that note, are we ready to call it for today? Any final rousing thoughts? I kind of want to leave it on you think Arya is better than Murtag.
I'll let you know what? I think the haters have earned this. I think you've earned this.
Yes.
We'll just leave it there. Thank you for listening. Make sure to rate and review on Apple Podcasts to be entered into our merch giveaway.
Yes.
Don't forget, you're only entered if you confirm with an email to isthisjustfantasypod@gmail.com.
That's us.
It's the same place. You can hit us up with questions, feedback, and recommendations for other books to cover on the show. And remember,
Yes.
you got to send us recommendations as soon as possible, too, because the way we shoot these,
Yeah, we're going to start prepping soon.
yeah, it'll be shortly after we shoot these. So,
Yeah.
like, it'll be probably when Murtag is coming out.
Yes.
That we're going to be in those last days of figuring it out.
Yes.
So, if not already reading. So, if you have book recommendations, please email us.
So true. We also will reply to your email. That's a guarantee.
Yeah, we've gotten some lovely emails that have like truly made
We
our
love
day.
to talk to listeners.
Yeah.
But if you do want to keep pace and read along with us, on the next episode, we'll be covering Chapter 18, A Toss of the Bones, through Chapter 23, Thardsver Gunsmol.
That's actually was
Fucking crushed
fantastic.
it.
It's just fantasy. We're just two nerds and we love our fantasy. Come on and listen to us next time. Find out what our deep dive will be. Thanks for catching our show.